A magnitude 7.7 just rocked Japan. And while the world watched that tsunami warning unfold, scientists were looking at a different fault entirely. One the Japanese government says could kill 298,000 people. Here's why the Nankai Trough just became the most important fault on Earth. Monday's earthquake hit the northeast coast of Japan at 4:53 in the afternoon. 175,000 people evacuated. Tsunami sirens fired across 5 prefectures, and within hours, the Japan Meteorological Agency issued a rare megaquake advisory. But here is the thing most headlines missed. Japan now has 2 separate fault systems under simultaneous alert. The northeast fault that ruptured Monday, and the Nankai Trough to the south. These are different faults, different tectonic plates, different cities at risk, and together, they cover nearly the entire Pacific coastline of Japan. The Japanese government's Central Disaster Prevention Council projects up to 298,000 deaths from a full Nankai megaquake. That's 15 times the death toll of 2011. Economic damage, up to $2 trillion. When the 1944 Nankai Trough earthquake fired, its tsunami reached Hawaii and the Aleutian Islands. A full-scale rupture today would trigger warnings for Honolulu, Seattle, and Los Angeles within minutes. Japan's own earthquake research committee calls the Nankai Trough a system that could rupture at any time. 2 fault systems, both are active, both watched. Start with what happened Monday, because it is what changed the calculation. At 4:53 p.m. local time, the seafloor off Iwate Prefecture fractured along the Japan Trench. The Pacific Plate, grinding beneath the North American Plate at nearly 9 centimeters a year, slipped. The Japan Meteorological Agency revised the magnitude to 7.7. Buildings swayed in Tokyo, hundreds of kilometers to the south. A CNN crew in the capital felt the shaking for 7 minutes straight. Tsunami waves hit Kuji Port in Iwate within an hour, 80 centimeters confirmed by JMA. The warning was eventually lifted. No deaths, 4 injuries, 26 buildings were damaged. Now here's where the story shifts. After the waves passed, the JMA did something it has only done 3 times in history. It issued a megaquake advisory, not for the fault that just ruptured, but for the Nankai Trough, hundreds of kilometers to the southwest. Here's why. In March 2011, a magnitude 7.3 earthquake struck off the coast of Japan. 2 days later, the magnitude 9.0 Tohoku earthquake hit, exactly nearby. That precedent changed earthquake policy in Japan permanently. After 2011, the government established a rule. Any large earthquake near a major subduction zone triggers a formal advisory, because sometimes the big shock comes first. The Nankai Trough is a completely separate system from the Japan Trench. It runs 800 kilometers along Japan's southern Pacific coast. This is where the Philippine Sea Plate pushes beneath the Eurasian Plate at roughly 4 centimeters per year. The fault is divided into 5 segments. In the worst-case scenario modeled by Japan's government, all 5 ruptures simultaneously. The result? A magnitude 9.1 earthquake. Tsunamis reach 34 meters in height along parts of the coast. Osaka, Japan's 3rd largest city with 2.7 million people, sits in the impact zone. So does Nagoya. So does much of Shizuoka and Kochi prefectures. And now here's the number that keeps scientists up at night. The last time the Nankai Trough produced a major rupture was in 1944 and 1946. 2 earthquakes 2 years apart, magnitude 8.1 each. That was 80 years ago. The historical repeat interval for this fault, 90 to 200 years. We are inside that window. According to Japan's Earthquake Research Committee, the 30-year probability of a Nankai megaquake sits between 60 and 90%. The committee says flatly, it could occur at any time. Let's put specific geography on this threat. Kochi Prefecture sits on Japan's southern coast directly facing the Nankai Trough. Government projections estimate tsunami waves reaching 10 to 34 meters along its coastline. That's up to 11 stories of water. Coastal towns there have been building evacuation towers specifically because there may not be enough time to reach high ground on foot. Osaka, 50 kilometers from the trough's projected rupture zone, faces estimated shaking intensity that would damage or destroy structures across the metro area. Nagoya, home to Toyota's manufacturing network and one of Japan's most critical industrial corridors, is directly in the projected impact zone. Shizuoka Prefecture, which sits above the Tokai segment of the Nankai Fault, has been under its own separate elevated long-term risk assessment for decades. As for American exposure, When the 1944 Nankai earthquake struck, its tsunami crossed the Pacific and reached Hawaii. A full-scale Nankai rupture today would trigger immediate warnings from the U.S. Pacific Tsunami Warning Center for Hawaii, the Aleutian Islands, and the entire U.S. West Coast. Travel time to Los Angeles, approximately 10 hours. Travel time to Seattle, similar range. The warning system would give coastal communities time to move. But time is not the same as safety. The JMA advisory through April 27 currently covers both fault systems simultaneously. That is new. Here is why the 3 advisories in under 2 years matter more than any single one. Before August 2024, Japan had never issued a megaquake advisory. The protocol was created after 2011, but it had never been triggered. Then in August 2024, a magnitude 7.1 struck near Miyazaki in the Huguenota Sea, adjacent to the Nankai system. The JMA issued the first advisory in Japanese history. People across the region evacuated voluntarily. Stores ran out of rice and emergency supplies within hours. The week passed without a larger quake. The advisory expired. In December 2025, a magnitude 7.5 struck off Japan's northeastern coast. Second advisory. Again, the week passed. No larger quake followed. Monday, April 20th, 2026, a magnitude 7.7. Third advisory. 3 advisories in under 2 years. That pattern has never been seen before. And it sits against a backdrop where Japan's Earthquake Research Committee revised the Nankai probability upward, from 70–80% to a range of 60–90% or higher, depending on which model is used. They published both numbers simultaneously, which seismologists noted was itself extraordinary. It was a public admission that earthquake prediction science has limits. But the danger level, they said, had not changed. There is also a specific historical pattern worth understanding. The Nankai Trough has historically produced what scientists call twin ruptures. In 1854, 2 magnitude 8.4 earthquakes struck the Nankai Trough just 30 hours apart. In 1944 and 1946, 2 magnitude 8.1 events struck 2 years apart. Research published in the journal Nature Scientific Reports found the historical probability of successive magnitude 8 or greater events within 3 years to be between 33 and 67% once the sequence begins. The sequence has not begun, but the window is open. Watch what happens in the next 72 hours. As of right now, the JMA subsequent earthquake advisory is active through April 27th. Officials have made clear this is not a prediction. It is a calibrated warning. 3 things to track. First, the Nankai Monitoring Network. Japan operates a dense array of seafloor sensors along the Nankai Trough called the DONET system, Dense Ocean Floor Network System for Earthquakes and Tsunamis. DONET detects slow slip events and pressure changes on the fault surface in real time. If DONET detects anomalous activity in the coming days, the JMA response will be immediate. Second, aftershocks from Monday. The USGS and JMA confirmed multiple aftershocks following the Japan Trench event. If those aftershocks increase in frequency rather than diminish, a pattern seismologists call an aftershock sequence reversal, it warrants close attention. Third, the 180 towns under the current advisory. From Chiba, east of Tokyo, to the northern tip of Hokkaido, all remain on alert through April 27th. Local governments are conducting real-time checks on evacuation readiness and emergency supply stockpiles right now. Worst-case scenario, as defined by Japan's Central Disaster Prevention Council. If a full multi-segment Nankai Trough rupture of magnitude 9.0 or greater were to occur in the coming days or weeks, then tsunamis exceeding 10 meters would strike coastal communities across Kochi, Mie, Wakayama, Shizuoka, and Aichi prefectures within minutes. Osaka Bay would experience waves and liquefaction damage to the surrounding metro area. U.S. Pacific Tsunami Warning Center alerts would fire for Hawaii, Alaska, and the U.S. West Coast within 10 minutes of the rupture. Best case, the current advisory expires April 27th, as the previous 2 did. The Nankai Trough stays quiet. Japan's monitoring systems show stable readings, and the 298,000 death scenario remains a model, not a memory. Japan's Earthquake Research Committee says the best case is statistically more likely. Most advisories end without a megaquake, but this fault is not waiting forever. At 80 years since the last rupture, and a historical window of 90 to 200 years, the Nankai Trough is not a future problem. It is a present one. 3 things to remember. The Nankai Trough is a separate fault from Monday's earthquake, but both systems are now under active advisory simultaneously, which is unprecedented. Japan's government projects up to 298,000 deaths and $2 trillion in damage from a full Nankai rupture, per the Central Disaster Prevention Council. The last Nankai major events struck in 1944 and 1946, and Japan's Earthquake Research Committee places the 30-year probability at 60 to 90% or higher. If you want to know what's building under the Pacific right now, subscribe. I post every time science moves. Coming next, the 2011 foreshock nobody talked about. A magnitude 7.3 hit 2 days before the Tohoku catastrophe, and scientists are still studying what that means for the Nankai Trough. That video is on screen right now. And after what you just learned, you need to see that one next. Stay safe.